Coming up, the CEO of Aira tells us more about their partnership with Google.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hello. Welcome to another Double Tap. Shaun Priest, how are you today, sir?
I am excited, Stephen Scott. I've got questions.
Yeah, and we're going to be putting those questions to Aira's CEO, Troy Otillio, who joins us hot off the heels of the Google I.O. conference, of course, the developer conference, which we were all excited about because Aira got a mention. Of course, that means blind people get a mention, so it's excellent. Troy Otillio, welcome back to Double Tap.
Thank you. I always love coming on your program. You guys ask great questions. You have a great audience. So, and obviously we have some exciting news. So I'm ready for this one.
Yeah, well, listen, you're absolutely right about our audience. I don't know if you'll be saying the same thing about our questions by the end, but you never know, right? Well, let's hope.
You never know.
Let's hope. Absolutely. Listen, first off, coming off the heels of Google I.O., you were there in person. It was in your hometown. It was all happening there. And I believe you're on a bit of a high at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, Aira's been around for 10 years, and we started with AI and the name of the company, right? Artificial Intelligence Remote Assistance. And it's long been a dream and a belief that AI should power a lot of the experiences. And while I think yesterday's announcement or the announcement at I.O. is significant for Aira, it's also, I got a vantage point that I don't normally get. I got to absorb all of Google, all of AI at once. And it's just a moment in time, I think, for accessibility in general. So it goes beyond that. And, I'm obviously, leading the company Aira, but I'm just ultimately passionate about advances in accessibility, and seeing what others and Aira can build on is also very exciting. And then I think I was telling you guys personally, I grew up in Silicon Valley. I grew up in San Jose before it was Silicon Valley, and so I got to return to my roots a little bit. I was there at Shoreline Amphitheater, where I've seen concerts, and it brought back a bunch of personal memories. But that's probably not what people are interested in. But certainly being part of the movement and partnering with a company like Google, which arguably is the leader, or one of the leaders, and with a lot of stamina and an ecosystem, I really came away thinking again about their massive ecosystem. So all to say, yes, I'm on a bit of a high, in that it is exciting for Aira, and it's also very stimulating to see what's coming and what's possible.
I think a lot of people may either have not known or may have forgotten that the AI in your name, in Aira, actually stood for artificial intelligence, because I actually forgot about that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's talk about why the movement towards AI and including it in your current service, because
maybe let's start with the beginning, because it does kind of set the stage. So it's really Saman Kanaganti is the founder of Aira, and he and I worked together at Intuit. And we should weave Glaases in too, because there was a big announcement there. I can probably say less about that. Yeah,
you opened the door, Troy.
I opened the door. It's Google XR is pretty impressive. We'll talk about that. But if you go back to 2015, even before Aira, Saman, and I worked together, I led innovation at Intuit, and we were at Intuit. We're fooling around with smart glasses with Google smart glasses, and they weren't even the enterprise version. And we were just experimenting to see what a hands-free experience could do for small businesses, in particular food trucks. What if you were wearing the glasses? You wouldn't have to wash your hands every time you handled money. There's a bunch of things. Saman, being very creative, ultimately comes up with the concept of Aira. He's got a friend, Matt Brock, who's blind, and all this comes together in his head. So he's like, of course, it's smart glasses connected to a remote professional interpreter. But we both, he knew, and, technologists know AI is coming. So certainly at some point, computer vision. So when you go seek funding for a company, you want to inspire your investors, and you also want to like talk about the future, not just what you can do now. And so AI was always part of it, and we always thought that, man, all of this data that we capture, these sessions with permission with the users, could be used to train an AI. And through the first 5 years, we spent quite a bit of money from the 38 million we raised to start Aira on AI efforts. And even for a while, we had folks that we've hired. Andrew Kuhl was part of the Scene AI team, and he joined Aira and came to develop AI. But we failed. Like, we had Chloe, the AI agent that could read a prescription bottle, but it was very, very hard fought, and it didn't meet the quality. And so in 2020, when we kind of restructured the company, we abandoned anything that wasn't going to make us cannot say that word, was not practical or sustainable. And so we put AI on the shelf, and then Gen AI pops up, OpenAI pops up, and I think all the companies, Scene AI, Be My Eyes, Aira, we jumped on that API, but and now we're starting to see the potential, but it's just picture at a time. But no, we've always been passionate about AI. Our agents have access to commercial AI that is secure and meets data privacy standards to kind of facilitate what they do. But here we're talking now about truly the dawn of interactive, proactive visual interpreting that will be powered by an AI model. And
let's dive into this a bit, Troy, because I think we need to understand this a bit better. I mean, obviously the presentation, could only go so far at the keynote. They would only allocate, I guess, so much time to this. The fact they allocate any time to it is incredible, and brilliant for us as blind people to be part of the conversation. And very proud of the fact that you guys are able to get in there, and the same that we felt the same when Meta and Be My Eyes were working together. It's really important that these big companies are recognizing the value of accessibility. But let's talk about what it all means. So what exactly is the relationship you've got, and how does it turn out to us as customers?
So what was announced yesterday, and what we'll talk about now, is we have been partnering with Google, and specifically with DeepMind. And for those, might go, what's the difference? Well, DeepMind is an organization within Google, and obviously they're on center stage in this period of time because they are the AI arm of Google, right? And so DeepMind's been around for a long time, and we announced our Build AI effort, I think, a year ago. And obviously, I always like to emphasize, with consent and participation from the blind community, right? Like, we knew that to build the proper AI or the best AI, it's going to have to be based on data that are, these professional interactions between visual interpreters.
And just to internationalize this a little bit, for people who weren't aware of this, because it was US only, I believe, Build
correct.
AI. Explain what that meant. What was that? What was that project?
So it was limited. Initially, it was limited to the U.S. and then expanded to Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Build AI did not allow people in Europe to participate. I think I think you can infer some of the data handling and privacy requirements to support Europe would require handling data in Europe, and there's a cost and practicality to being able to support that. And so at least from an Aira side, we couldn't support what would be required, so we focused in where we could develop it. So what that looked like to an individual is you could opt into this Build AI program, and by opting in, you could opt out at any time. You're saying, hey, I'm open to sharing my sessions with an unnamed third party. Now you know who the unnamed third party was. It was Google/DeepMind. And so you could also opt out within 48 hours of a specific session. You can say, you know what, I did opt into the program, but that one session, for whatever reason, I don't really want that shared. So we gave you as much control as we could to share data. And in exchange for that as well, those sessions were free. So you got the benefit of an Aira experience at no cost, and you also helped grow this library of sessions to build an AI. So that's what Build AI looks like. Right now, Build AI is still available, but in a smaller capacity. We may close that out. The purpose of that is to build the AI. We're moving into what you might call test AI, or what Google's calling trusted testers, their general program around anything that they do with the public. But Build AI, started last, July-ish, and, ran at full tilt up until I think a month and a half ago, and now it's at a limited capacity. So that is Build AI, available in US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Yeah, and those, but not in Europe.
I will say, I do believe we have it in the UK, because I was signed up for that. So I believe
it's
here in
correction.
In the UK.
You are correct, sir. And
hooray! Yes.
One Brexit benefit right there.
Yes.
There you go. We've got something out of it. There we go.
But okay, so the Build AI, we were wondering, what that data was being used for, and obviously we can see it was for this purpose. But can we assume that data that you gathered from Build AI, is that being fed back for the general Gemini artificial intelligence, or is that specifically for your use case? So I'm just wondering, will this benefit?
No, it's a great question. I'm not an attorney. I'm very attuned to the data handling and privacy interactions with all our partners, in particular this one. I think you're talking about model benefit is like the technical term. Like any AI that you interact with, if you consent to using the AI, they're going to talk about like who can see the data, if you will, like, what engineers at the company could potentially see the data, how it can be used. And then separately, does the model that company's developing improve as a result of what you do? What we provided, and in partnership with Google, is to build and Dennis talked about yesterday, that this visual interpreter model that kind of sits alongside or works with Astra, which is their general model. So the data that was provided was used to create the visual interpreter model, which is going to be ongoing and will be refined over the course of the next months and years.
So
did that answer it?
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking, if someone's using, the Gemini app, and once with the live vision aspect, the Project Astra aspect goes live with that, will they see the same sort of accuracy or the same feature set that they will when they're accessing it through Aira?
You're asking if you use Astra directly versus using the visual interpreter that is uniquely part of the Aira app. They will be different. So the Astra app is a general purpose AI, and certainly can do a lot of what you will find in the visual interpreter app. But the visual interpreter app is, in a sense, a superset. It's a more specific model tuned to the act of visual interpreting, and specifically, the way our agents are trained to interact, both from a conversational style, keeping things more, certainly keeping it objective unless you ask to be subjective. So, that's a difference. And then understanding a lot of the nuance of what it means to be blind, and what aspects need attention and which ones do not, right? There's a lot of, as we know, right, whether it's volunteers or your sighted friends who occasionally are with you, they don't always understand what capacities people have, and so sometimes they offer to help where help is not needed per se, or they describe things in a way that doesn't help. Like if they reference visual patterns, like that's, the shirt you're wearing is plaid. Well, if you've never experienced plaid because you never had vision, then that means nothing. So there's a bunch of nuance into how the visual interpreter model works that is unique to that, and then The Astra project itself is based on general knowledge, and so you'll get a different experience there, and it won't be likely as proactive. So, for example, if I was holding a can of soup or a can of liquid, the interpreter will be able to not just describe what it sees, but if you say, hey, I want to know what the ingredients are, it's going to know to ask you to rotate the can, and it's going to confirm that you've rotated it to the ingredients. So things like that are just some simple examples I know of. But let's be honest, we're early days, and what Astra is going to be able to do on its own, that will improve, and what the visual interpreting model will be able to do will improve significantly, and we're just at the start of it. And so I think collectively we'll find out truly what the difference is over time.
Yeah, this is very exciting, and absolutely no doubt at all we're at the beginning of a very interesting journey. But I want to ask you about one particular aspect of AI generally, which has bugged me a little bit since live video came along, and I wonder if it's something that you've been working on with Astra, if you can talk about this. And that is, the AI being proactive rather than reactive. Now, this came up a lot at the keynote from Google I/O. They talked about proactive versus reactive AI, something that's moving forward. For me, it's about, and I use this example a lot, Troy, putting the mug on the table and then not being able to find the mug, and I want to know where the mug has gone or if the mug has been moved. And I want to be able for the live vision component to say the mug has moved without me asking, has the mug moved? So someone walks into my room and picks the mug up and moves it. And we often say, if you move a mug on a table to a blind person, you may as well place it on the surface of the moon, because as far as they're concerned, it's gone, right? So I'd like to know that. And if Gemini can see that movement, can see that and then react to it. Are we at that stage?
I'm going to answer, yes, we are at that stage. What you're talking about is memory, right? And Astra in general, AI models in general, are getting to the point of being able to remember things. I think I've seen demos and they're compelling. That the keys are examples. So whether you're blind or sighted, losing one's keys is I think a very human thing to do, right? You're busy, you're not focused. Yep. You put your keys down, you're scrambling, whatever, and then hours later you're like, damn, where did I put the keys? We all have that experience, and Astra has demonstrated, independent of the visual interpreting model, that capacity because it saw where the keys were and has contextual awareness. Later, you can say, hey, I'm looking for my keys. And it says, oh, you put your keys down on the table in the kitchen. So I have not tested the coffee mug use case yet, personally, and I don't know that one. But I'm gonna take a leap of faith and say, yeah, absolutely, that is certainly the goal, and certainly something that I expect will work in the way you described it.
They definitely showed that in action at the event with the, what was the name of the store on that coffee cup I was holding. That memory, that long-term memory was there. Yeah. But I think using your analogy there, if you did lose your keys, what we're looking for when we say proactive is, okay, I walk into one room and I say, can you see my keys anywhere on the floor, let's say? No. Then I walk into another room, and instead of us asking, you actually say, no, they're not in here either, or yes, I see them over there. It's that not being prompted. I think what we're thinking of for us in our community is, and I know lots of companies don't want to really touch this, but for navigation, if I'm walking down the sidewalk and there's a car parked on the pavement right in front of me, I don't want to be asking every 30 seconds, is there anything in front of me?
That's a much better example of it. Yeah, that's a much better example.
What I'm looking for is to be able to say, hey, keep an eye out, and if there's any obstacles that I'm about to walk into, just let me know. It's that sort of proactive we're looking for. Now, the trouble is, of course, there's a huge, it takes a lot of processing power to process a live video for all that time, but that's the thing we're looking out for.
Well, and maybe another way to answer this is, if the visual interpreter does this today, instinctively, because they're human and they've got the concept of you've got certain needs and wishes either implicitly or you've explicitly set the context, as you mentioned. I think declaring what's in front of you and avoiding things is an implicit, right? You call Aira with a professional visual interpreter. You're expecting to get that information, and
that's exactly the way I use it. I was at a place the other week in exactly that situation. I was in a situation where a town I didn't know particularly well. We wanted to get down to the beach so I could get some ice cream because it was a nice day, and I was in Scotland.
Nice.
And that's very unusual, Troy. So we thought, well, let's buy some ice cream. I think a store had to open because they don't do it very often. And, I had an Aira agent in my ear, actually on my glasses. I was listening through my glasses and using my phone. And it was just delightful, right? And I guess the question we probably all have is, can AI replicate that with Project Astra?
I will say it this way: it will. Like it's not up to me on the timeline. It's really you've got the collective brain power of DeepMind and then our engineering and product team working together. Again, the mission is to evolve the AI, train the AI. Like sometimes I think of the AI as just another agent that we hired with some incredible powers built in, right? Some worldwide knowledge, and we are collectively training it to just like we train visual interpreters. Now, humans come with a ton of lived experience, and then we layer human-based training on top of it. AI is trained a little differently, but it's all to say the goal and the mindset that we all share is to evolve AI to be able to take on as many tasks and situations as practical. Now I'm going to start with navigation. Navigation is not one that we're starting with. We know that is a more complex and challenging task. And even in our early trusted tester program, we are going to be excluding outdoor navigation from the use cases because I think both from call it even a safety or from a reliability or an efficiency point of view, we don't believe that's the place to start. We think the place to start is on the simpler task. Ultimately, as we monitor, measure, and evolve the AI, we're going to be able to more quickly identify what use cases work well, and that allows us then to decide on what use cases need more training, et cetera, et cetera. But, the end goal is to evolve AI to be able to take on as many of the situations and use cases that is practical. And over time, you ask me, well, what's the limit? It's hard to say because, if we roll back 20 years, and we forecasted this conversation or even self-driving cars or what have you. Yeah. Like I've long learned that you can't really predict what's going to happen more than 3 years in advance. I mean, you can have theories, but yes, we're working on getting to a point where you have a choice, and we should talk about this. You have a choice to start with an AI, start with a human, move back and forth, and all the while, I think inconsistent with how Aira does image AI, our goal is to always have humans as that fundamental resource that can ensure the quality, can ensure the efficiency, all the while giving you the choice to move freely back and forth, but keeping the context so that you don't have to re-explain to the AI, re-explain to the human what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Well, you said something interesting there about the human agents, and going back to what Stephen said with his experience of finding the ice cream shop, of course, only Stephen. I've got to say, that is it's such it's such an exciting experience. I've had that as well when I'm walking down the street and, left a bit, there's a sign coming up, just stick to your left, there's people walking towards you. Having that in your ear is so, it's so freeing. And look, yes, I'm sure AI will get there. We've been blown away by the improvements in there. But what is your plan? Are you thinking, what sort of workload is it going to turn out to be when it comes to AI versus human agents? Is it always going to be human agents?
I think there'll always be human agents. I think trying to think about some analogies. So I happen to have a self-driving Tesla, okay? And I use the self-driving feature quite a bit, but in certain situations, it's too complex, it's too slow, it's too complex, and or the self-driving's too slow or indecisive, and it's just, I would prefer to do it myself, the human, right? If you look at the use cases that we see with Aira, which is the full life experience from the moment you wake up to the time you go to bed, there are certain times in the day Aira is either a efficiency play, right? Like there's things that people can do on their own, but it's maybe tedious or takes a long time. You can do it on your own. You're totally autonomous and independent, but sometimes people want that efficiency. There's other times when you want to be absolutely sure, right? Like people have choices. They can use Be My Eyes, they can use Aira. Some people always ask me, well, what's the difference? And I say, well, we often get the use cases where people really want to be sure. They want the professional that's taken thousands of calls. So even with the AI, I kind of look at it as it's going to be a less trusted resource because there's just not that experience. Like, how do you get trust around, someone flying a plane or driving you? Like, you go, well, they have a lot of experience, and the humans, come with all the experience. So the AI has to play catch up, and I still think, in the foreseeable future, 3, 5, 10 years, there'll always be a need for the humans to be part of that experience. Separately, there's a whole separate question. It's a different tangent, but we all know that, we interact with AI and automation all the time, but at some point, sometimes you just want to be connected to a human, right? It's just your preference. It's like, I want to know that the other person that is working with me has true lived experiences, has empathy, and we've heard that loud and clear from a lot of our explorers. So our job, again, is to provide a visual interpreting experience that is efficient, is private, is secure, and we'll factor in the AI, but make sure that when those criteria aren't met, you have access to a professional. So it's a long way of saying, I think over time we can absorb and take on more visual interpreting use cases, likely at a different cost, a different internal cost, so that we can provide our service to more people for more use cases, but also giving you a choice.
Okay, these are obviously the big questions, right? But let's get into the real kind of brass tacks here of what is going to be happening. So this is part of a trusted tester program through Google, is that right? Or directly through yourselves? There's been a little bit of a blowback online about this because it wasn't quite clear to a lot of people signing up that it was going to be US only. They were kind of all excited and then started signing up and realizing at the last minute it was US only. Do you think you could have done better in that messaging at the beginning?
It's hard to message the community, especially with this one, because we had to keep it under wraps until the announcement. And so our ability to kind of test our communication ahead of time. Sure, it's a tricky one, I suppose. I'm just being a transparent CEO. There are real limitations. GDPR is great, and by the way, this is not. I'm not speaking on behalf of Google. Certainly we're partnered with them, and they have requirements that are, come from the way they deploy and the way they operate. GDPR is an awesome piece of legislation, and I love I'm very pro privacy, but it does add additional requirements to host data in country, and so we are challenged sometimes to deploy solutions that are operating on people's data. And so I think it's just my general opinion that there's a pro and con to GDPR. And if you're not operating in the country already, there's an additional cost to do that.
So that's why it is US only at the moment, right? Because to be fair, everything that pretty much was announced at Google I/O was US only to start with. So
yes,
it wasn't a huge shock when I learned that this particular project was under US only as well.
Yeah, and again, I can't speak on behalf of Google's in case they're listening. Like they make decisions. I don't think they would cite GDPR directly. I'm just letting you know, even when we look at how we deploy or how I've worked at prior companies, there's always an additional barrier. And there's pros and cons to that. Could we have messaged it better? Yeah, maybe at the top it should have said something more about, US only. We fully expect to expand. I mean, if you saw Build AI, it started in the US and then expanded. You'll also see that Texas and Illinois are excluded at the moment, and I think you'll find some of the similar things. It's another fascinating non-IRA topic, is how does privacy intersect with innovation, right? Innovation prefers to run fast and free, and with lightweight controls, and privacy demands absolute understanding, control of where data lives, and consent, and those are, in my opinion, always going to be at odds. And so who wins, who loses in that depends on what you're doing. And I would prefer to see it worldwide, frankly, just but there's some limitations.
And of course, it's not just Google that's facing this problem. They all are. And we had the recent
everyone.
Meta AI problems, in Europe, obviously. So
still do.
And still do, yeah. Well, it's the same. It's a transitional period. I think, of course, they want to get this technology out everywhere. It's a lot like self-driving cars. The technology is there. We're just waiting for the regulation to catch up. Sadly, we're sort of casualties of that.
Let me ask you about this rollout then. So, how many people are you expecting in the US to be able to sign up to this at this early stage?
Well, the wait list. First I'll just encourage everyone should sign up for the waitlist. You're not prevented from submitting a form on the waitlist, no matter where you live or whatever, right? Like, so you just get on the waitlist. You don't know how that waitlist is going to be used or deployed. I
have had a couple of sneaky messages from people saying, "How can we get ourselves pushed up the list?" That's rather cheeky, isn't it?
It is, but I've got a PayPal account, and I can certainly.
And it is accepting offers.
No, I hope everyone knows I do like to have fun at the job, and I do like to joke, but I should be serious. So the wait list is being managed.
Sign up. Are you saying that anyone around the world can sign up now? Essentially,
yeah, can get on the wait list. Yes, get on the wait list
initially for the rollout.
Yeah, and you might imagine that if we get a ton of demand in certain places, that kind of changes perhaps our appetite to expand. So it's just join the wait list. It's a form. You may have filled it out. I think it's, what was it, five questions perhaps. Get on the wait list. Anyone can join, and then the wait list will be pulling folks off of the wait list. Ultimately, it's an Aira Google partnership, so we are collectively choosing who will get early access to the program. We're not revealing the criteria for that. Certainly the name trusted tester implies, trust with the tester. It also implies that we want to develop trust with the individual testing. So I can't reveal the criteria for how we're selecting people off the wait list. And you asked how many folks. We don't have any public statement on how big it'll grow. I can generally say it's going to grow in proportion to the, how do I say, our goal in this testing is to improve it. And our goal, and if you think about that, it's ultimately, if you put too many people in and the AI is not performing, or there's challenges, you're getting too much noise. You're spending all your time filtering noise. If you have too few people, you're not getting the broad spectrum of feedback. And so it's going to be a dynamic process based on what we see internally, and maybe I should just take a moment at this time to really, emphasize a little bit why we partnered with Google, or maybe why they partnered with us. We both look at this as a long-term game, and we also look at this as, we have to be careful. We have to be realistic about what the AI can do, because I'm not saying today that it's not mainstream. It's not ready for mainstream at all. It's still very early, and the goal is to improve it, but not waste people's time and not add frustration. it's true that as a trusted tester, when you call in, the session will be supervised by an Aira visual interpreter. And it is true that if in that session there is a safety concern, or the frustration, or the AI is not working and you're not getting to your end task, it's collectively in our interest for the agent to take over and complete the task, so that you as the tester are encouraged to come back, so that you as the tester, aren't wasting your time. But it's all to say the size of the testing pool will grow, but we don't have specific goals. Goal is ultimately to get everyone in there, but it'll be a function of what the success rate is, and are we getting enough broad spectrum feedback.
Okay. And another couple of questions relating to the Trusted Tester program. One in particular around the way that this will roll out. So if someone becomes a trusted tester, you say that obviously they have access to that AI they can use. Mm-hmm. But let's say there's a task they really just want to get to a human. Are you providing it in such a way that you can immediately get to a human the way you would regularly on an Aira call? Or I guess I'm asking, is it the same app? Is it a different app? Are you
the same app.
Different experience?
If you can imagine the main page of Aira, it's pretty simple. You got the big, call Aira, and then you got a couple options below on, you can provide some information in advance, etc. Once you're part of the Trusted Tester program, there's a separate button below that is an AI button, and you press that, and you're basically initiating a call initially with the AI, and then throughout the course of that call, if something doesn't go well, and you want to escalate, or the agent decides to escalate, then you're talking to the visual interpreter, the human visual interpreter. But you have at the top of that app, you still have the same old, just go right to the professional visual interpreter, the call experience you already know today. And as we'll describe in the Trusted Tester program, it is limited to the tasks that we believe you should attempt and work with, because we know that there should be success. And then maybe doubling down on what I said before, the Trusted Tester is not going to use the AI to do outdoor navigation. So you would always press the Aira button, the direct to human visual interpreter button if you're doing navigation. So you'll have a choice, and you'll make that explicit choice. We may change the UI over time, but that's going to be the initial experience.
Yeah, that's good to know. I think that's quite comforting, because even if you're joining as a trusted tester, you'll still want access to Aira in the usual way.
Yes.
So it's good you have that secondary option, and there'll be sort of safeguards around that. In regards to time limits, are there any time limits on using or doing or having an Aira?
There will be some time limits. We have not disclosed what those are, and we may change them over time. So I'm a little reluctant to say.
Well, you can disclose them here. Troy, it's fine. We don't mind.
What do you want the time limit to be?
Those PayPal details, yeah.
Yeah. What we say?
I haven't seen it hit my account yet, so
it's always the way. Give it time. Give it 6 hours.
Yeah. What would you want as a time limit? I guess I can turn it around, because I think that is something we're going to explore. Again,
it's interesting, isn't it? It does depend on the use case. I'm thinking, because sometimes it's just simply, I've opened the fridge and I want to know what these mystery food packages are, in which case only a few minutes is absolutely fine. Other times I might want to go through my old CD collection, which could take an hour. But obviously, keeping an AI session going for that long, the amount of tokens and processing costs must be huge. So I think most people will be fairly understanding about the time limits.
I think indoors you're probably looking at 10 minutes would be a maximum call, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on average.
I would say that our goal, again, is just to build a better AI to improve it, and certainly there's compute costs, but I don't see that necessarily constraining what we do. I think it's more about, is it a productive session, and is it helping us build a better AI? And so I'm making this up on the fly. This is dangerous, but let's say I was assembling IKEA furniture, which for anyone can take hours, and it's painful. Maybe not all IKEA, but it can take a long time.
Definitely painful.
Perhaps there's a point in time where either the AI is killing it or it's not. We're not going to learn anything more from continuing this to an hour session, and I can predict we'd probably limit those, because again, if you think about the goal, there's a future, of course, where we hope and expect to commercialize this, and so you're not a tester anymore. And then that's a whole separate question on like what are the constraints, what are the economics around AI.
Sorry, that's an interesting point you make there, because of course Aira's all about the minutes, right? So if we're using AI, is it still applying once it comes out of the testing phase? Obviously,
we haven't decided what the way to remain, quote, profitable and sustainable with AI. Image AI, if you look at the 4 or 5 companies using all the same API, there's a cost to that, but it's so small that I think all of us are absorbing that, believing that either it's the right thing to do at the low cost or it helps our business grow. I think that if you look at the processing and the compute needs of a proactive, mini image, if you think about a video is just lots of images. If you look at that, there's got to be some underlying costs, and the question will be open as to, from a go-to-market perspective, does that remain like a free service to encourage more people to join the ecosystem, or do we monetize it in a way that covers costs and also allows us some profit to grow? We haven't made any decisions like that, but we'll always be applying the same reason Aira costs money and others maybe don't is because it is a professional service and there's underlying costs that has to be dealt with. And equally, we look for and we haven't decided any of this yet, so it's just sharing what is probably obvious. If you look at the Aira ecosystem is economically powered by its B2B and B2G partners, right? Like the subscription revenue is awesome, but it's not something we look to burden the community. As individuals, we look to grow our network. And so there's a whole separate question as to what's the appetite and comfort level that organizations might have to deploy Aira AI, right? That's way future. And we are working with our partners to understand would they have concerns, or what would they want to see, or like how do they think about an AI visual interpreter? But that's for another podcast, in quite a few months.
Yeah, well, we look forward to it.
Many questions.
But I also want to ask, and just as another question that came in just before we did the interview, or started the interview, I thought was quite interesting. Someone asking, will this be available on Aira for desktop? Is this something that is attached in any way?
Yeah,
it is.
I mean,
right.
Just so you know, we're proud of this. I'm proud of this. We happen to use a framework called Flutter. There's lots of frameworks that allow you to write an app once and deploy anywhere. Aira 1.0 is what we call the VC powered stage. We actually had separate code bases. What that means is I had some developers building the Android app, some developers building the iOS app, and you're doing a lot of duplicative work, and it's painful because sometimes a feature gets missed on one versus another, and it's a mess. And then you add to that the web. That could have been a whole other thing. Well, we chose to go with Flutter. Happens to be from Google. We didn't pick it because it was from Google. We picked it because it was a best-in-class solution. So we write our app once, and then it's available on all 3 platforms. And so it's a long way of getting to yes. It'll show up, in your web app if you're part of the Trusted Tester program.
One of the reasons I use Aira for desktop, and I use it quite a lot, is to connect with an agent to help me with something on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Can it work in that way?
Man, you're a pro. Yes, it can.
Well,
it's funny. I'm laughing. I'll tell you why.
I'll be honest, Troy. I'm a user. This is what I do.
No, I
all the time
know, but you jumped. So one of the delights of Aira, I think of any technology leader, CEO, whatever, like it's always fun to see how customers, and I'm going to use a term, it comes from a book, misuse your product. Like as creators of a product, you create it like, I expect them to use it this way. And like, if you're very junior at it, if someone's not using the way you think, you kind of fight it. Like, well, let's stop them from doing that. When Aira first launched, people started asking agents to take pictures and send them the photo. Why? So that they could participate on social media just like everyone else, and they have a good frame picture. And like we were like, wow, we never thought of that, and no one brought it up early, but that's what they did. And so I'm gonna tell you some of the early internal testers. It might have been Janine. She started sharing her screen and using it, and we just frankly didn't think of it, right? And so and it does work. Because the AI is looking at the video feed, it doesn't know or care that it's coming from your screen or coming from the camera on your phone, and it works. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
So yes, but I like how you already predicted it, yeah, and I think we're gonna. If you ask me, what am I most excited about? I'm excited about a lot of things, but one of them is, I think we're going to discover some new use cases or ways that people use AI that maybe they don't use a human for. You alluded to it. You might have a different feeling about what you're going to do with an AI than you do with a human, despite the fact I would tell you, use the visual interpreter in any way that you think is appropriate. They've seen everything, they've done everything, and you're not wasting their time because ultimately, whether you have a subscription or you're using the free minutes or using an offer, it is paid for, and you should not feel like you're taking from others.
Can I give you an example of exactly an occasion where I would not use Aira or a Be My Eyes or any human being, and that is when, and it's a little bit disgusting, but I have to be honest.
Yep.
And I think you know where I'm going with this, Shaun.
I do.
We have dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs will do what dogs do. They haven't figured out how to use the bathroom yet. And, if the dog goes out on a chilly, wintry morning and, the dog comes back in, later on I need to go and find the dog has left me as a present. And I really could do with some help. But I'm never going to call an Aira agent. Whether or not the Aira agent's okay with it or not, I would feel really awkward with that. That is exactly one example of where I'd use it.
And of course, that's what makes you human, right? You have a certain value on that.
Yeah.
I sometimes joke a little bit because I'm in a joking mood. I feel like we should post some stats. And one of the stats we could post is the number of, garden bombs that have been discovered with Aira. It is a very, very, very common use case. Like it is for some users, that is the daily or, that is a very common use case. So
100%.
Just so you know, lots of explorers have no, issue with that, but of course it's personal preference. We see all manner of things, whether that's looking at people's skin or a lot of personal experience. Some people don't want Aira in their home, like, oh, my home's a mess, I don't want the agents have seen the inside of thousands and thousands of homes, and not all of them are the same. Like so, but again, that's what it means to be human. You have certain feelings about other humans, and that's beautiful. And
Stephen has no feelings. Don't know what he's talking
about. I have feelings, damn it.
You don't. You're Scottish. I've actually used it for that purpose myself. But
you're a disgrace.
Take it to a... No, they're absolutely fine. The thing I find is that I always ask beforehand, hey, this is what I want to do. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
It's just courtesy, right?
Yeah, but of course, yeah.
Taking this a step further, I mean, I'm just thinking, recent diabetes checkup, I was asked, do you pass blood? Well, I would have no idea. And again, look, it's one of those things where you think, I'm never going to ask anyone that sort of question, but how else would you get an answer to that, which is something that can be really important, right?
Very. I don't know if you know Matt Ader from Vespero. He's
regular here.
Regular, and whenever we're at conference together, I like spending time with Matt. And I remember he was explaining how, if your basic healthcare depends often on access to visual information, knowing what your skin and other things look like, if you can't directly observe it. And so as Aira agents, we are not medically trained at all, right? But we can describe things, and there are limits, especially with your private parts, whatever. We don't describe those, but there is some discretion with the agent. We all know they're equally important player in this whole game, and we certainly want them to feel comfortable, safe, and not experience things they don't want to experience. We do have call transfer, so sometimes if it gets in the borderline, the agent may say, I'm sorry, I can't help with this task, but let me see if I can find you someone who's comfortable, because some agents are more comfortable with certain tasks than others. But that definitely gets into a gray area that presumably you wouldn't get into with AI, but here's a whole nother dimension to that. And I don't know the answer to how our model behaves because it's so new. But as you know, I think with standard image models, it won't describe certain things because it's been, call it censored or programmed not to for different reasons, right? It won't describe certain forms of violence. It won't describe certain forms of nudity. So there may be limitations with AI as well, not based on the sensitivity of the AI, but based on the constraints that the curator of the AI has for other reasons, which is a whole nother topic of why, why should you do that and when, and we'll have to experience that as well.
Yeah, and it's a huge ethical discussion, right? Because we are looking, I speak generally, but of course we as blind people, we'd need access to information, that could be potentially a dangerous situation or something that's unnerving. Of course, look around the world, look at the things that are unfolding around the world. If you're blind in that situation and you rely on something like Aira to keep you safe, these are real world examples of where you need that information.
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting. Troy, it's been wonderful spending so much time with you today. I really appreciate it. And this is all just really the beginning, isn't it, frankly,
the beginning,
for Aira AI. Ironically, because like you say, the name had it in it from the beginning. You were
10 years
future gazing back then.
Well, I think or hopefully everyone knows, we are stubborn, persistent, and I think much like the community, we will persevere. So whatever challenge is in front of us, we look. We're in it for the long play, and so. I literally sat there yesterday. I was in Shoreline Amphitheater, which is a big, it's a big event venue, and was looking down at the stage where the CEO of Google was talking about the future and AI, and then the CEO of DeepMind gets up and he talks about Aira, and I have to say, a lot went through my head because I'm like, damn it, we're in the game and with one of the best partners, and I didn't get a chance really to say. Yeah, how much I have come to respect DeepMind and Google's approach and thoughtfulness, but I'm like, we are in a position to make a difference, and we're in a position to lead in some ways. We're just one solution in the fabric of accessibility, but it's our passion, and it's just the beginning. And if I can start with the excitement and then end with a bit of sobriety. I would tell everyone not to expect anything close to perfection or jaw-dropping similarities between a human visual interpreter and AI. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take patience, which the blind and low vision community kind of inherently has at times, which is great. But our job is to guide this in a way that provides the best proactive, interactive, efficient, and secure experience, and give you all the opportunity to choose between what form of visual assistance you want, including even the image AI. Like that doesn't go away either. So there's more options, and it should be a more comprehensive tool going forward.
I've got to say, I really like that you're setting the expectations there, because I think there's been so many promises with AI and a lot of excitement, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone, getting carried away a little bit. So it's great to set those expectations, and I think I appreciate the honesty. And on that as well, Troy. So when are the Google Glasses coming out?
Well, you can go read about Google XR. It's an initiative they've been working on for a while. They did describe that it's going to be open for developers for the ability to produce applications that integrate with Glaases. They announced that they're having partnerships with different glass manufacturers. I think it's pretty clear that Google doesn't necessarily want to be the ones to produce and distribute glasses. They want to produce the design and make sure the integration into mobile platforms, iOS, Android, etc., is easy. And I really applaud that direction because, the challenge we found when we were in that space is, forget the technology. Glasses are such a personal thing, right? Like the shape of your face, the way your ears are made. I almost said manufactured. The way they're I've got average ears, but some people have very large or small, and noses, right? Like not everyone has this big Italian nose that I have, right? My nose is great for glasses. Like they're not going to fall down. But so all to say that I think having that vision to say like we're going to open this up and have an open platform is commendable. I'm frustrated with Meta that they've remained a closed platform. And it's great that Be My Eyes is on there, and I give Mike Buckley a lot of credit for leveraging perhaps his past relationship with Facebook and being exclusive there. But it doesn't help the industry to be a closed platform, and so I'm applauding Google's approach, and I think our job is to put Aira wherever people want it, and certainly people want it on a low cost but a well considered set of glasses. And I did have a chance to talk with that team, and they are thinking about accessibility as well, and it's our job, given our partnership, to make sure that we provide all of the lessons and learnings that we had, and so they can build the best product. So when is it going to be available? I guess you just got to stay tuned, but I'm very encouraged by that announcement and the demo yesterday. I don't know if you kind of caught the demo, but I think if you were to have seen it personally, what you saw was really clear streaming video and a very nice form factor with their prototypes that they have, and the fact that AI is on board. I think that's also driving the market to adopt even glasses that don't have heads-up display, right? Because when you add the heads-up display, you're adding cost, you're potentially draining battery, you're adding more complexity to the solution.
And they used the word optional, which was very interesting.
Optional, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that really excited me, because I think for this community in particular, we want the lowest cost but most performant solution, and a display is not something that is going to be needed, so it is optional. Yeah, so that's my answer today. I hope to come on a podcast sooner than later and talk about how you can use Aira interactively and natively, including the AI, on a pair of glasses that are supported by the Google XR platform.
And we want to let you. So that will be good. Final word from me on this. For all of us outside of the US, please get it rolled out soon, because we're all keen to try this. We all want to use it as much as you can. Because obviously you have a huge customer base outside of the US. They really want to try this, as do we, where we are in the UK, for example. So, it'd be great to get this pushed out. I realize your hands are tied to some degree, but
I hear you loud and clear, and
I think you said it yourself, right? Yeah. People should sign up to the wait list. Show your interest.
Yeah, that's a signal for sure, and I know where that signal is going to go. I know that there's going to be demand, but when you produce the data in combination with Google, I think it just makes it easier. So I hear you loud and clear, and absolutely, my intention is to expand it as soon as possible.
Troy, thanks so much for spending so much time with us today. I really appreciate it. And
all right,
come back soon.
It's probably too late for you to go get an ice cream in the sun, but
tell
Tell me when you do. It sounds good. Thank you all. All right.
Thanks, Troy.
And thanks everyone in the audience. Great to connect with you, even though I can't hear what you're saying, but I look forward to hearing the feedback. We listen to all the channel.
I look listening, Troy. You're gonna hear a lot.
But I encourage you, good or bad, we want to hear it. So, all right.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Take
Troy.
care. Bye-bye.
Well, as often is the case, Shaun, I often think we sometimes leave these interviews with more questions than answers. But he certainly did answer a lot of those questions, those pertinent questions that we wanted asked. What was your takeaway from that?
Again, I just think answered a lot of questions, but I just want to say again, the expectation setting of what the AI can do, I think is so important nowadays. We get carried away. Let's get this tested, those of you who can get it, and let's hope it improves.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to your feedback on this one. Get in touch in all the usual ways. We will catch you again for another Double Tap tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.